Revelation 3504b. From the 2nd of August 1945. Earth sample. New Earth and its emergence. Thus the human age was preceded by an epoch of earthly development which first shaped creation in such a way that the conditions of life were created for the human being on earth, for this was the prerequisite that the human being could now begin his spiritual ascent development. For it had to serve the spiritual, which was now embodied as a human being, in love in order to finally become free from the bondage, which was a deserved state for its former will to rule. For it had not acknowledged God as its origin, as its creator and producer, because it did not want to accept him but believed itself capable of creating and shaping out of its own strength and of controlling its creations. It did not recognize that these came into being by using the power from God, and thus that everything was subject to the eternal deity, which had merged from the will of the opponent Lucifer and the power from God. It did not submit and must therefore now, as a human being, muster the degree of will to acknowledge God as sole Lord and Creator and to submit unconditionally to His divine will. The earth was now at a stage where the divine creation required human activity in order to give human beings the possibility of life. God himself instructed the first human beings in their earthly task, the fulfillment of which ensured their final release from form. But now the power of God's adversary began, who had no control over the spiritual during the previous period of development. Man was endowed with free will, and this will God's adversary sought to win for himself. But this test was permitted by God because man was to decide in fullest freedom of will for him or his adversary. The latter seeks to distract the human being from serving in love and to determine him to be active according to his will, which is often also the will of the human being himself. As long as people dwell on earth they stand as an object of battle between light and darkness. For their souls are courted by both sides, which want to direct the will towards themselves. The spiritual being, previously in a state of compulsion, striving towards God, can reduce the final distance from itself to God but also increase it, yet it must inevitably also bear the consequences of its decision. Earth offers countless possibilities for spiritual ascent development, however, sinking into the deepest depth is also possible, and both are determined by the human being's will itself. Yet even this period of development will come to an end as soon as the human will no longer makes use of any opportunities. As soon as it completely disregards spiritual ascent and thus no longer fulfills its earthly task, then the spirit will strive back again towards the state it had already overcome an infinitely long time ago. And God also places it in this state as soon as the end of the redemption period has come. He lets a new earth arise again and revives the new creation with this spiritual, which failed in the development period before. And indeed, all substance is dissolved which contains spiritual things. This is synonymous with the complete destruction of what is visible to the eye as earthly matter. The building up of the new earth, however, does not take place in the same way as at the beginning of creation, for the new human race no longer needs the slow preliminary development, since it has passed the test on the old earth and is so far in knowledge that it understands the purpose and goal of every work of creation. Thus new creations can come into being unhesitatingly before people's eyes without being a spiritual obstacle to perfection for them. The new redemption period is therefore only a continuation of the previous one. It only requires a transformation of the external form, a reshaping of the Earth's surface for the purpose of new development possibilities through the emergence of new creations. For the Earth itself remains in existence, it only releases the spiritual for a short time according to divine plan, which is banished again in new creations in order to mature more quickly for the next deformation. The people of the new earth are in a state of maturity which earns them a paradisiacal life, and they are always willing to be active in serving love. Consequently, they are initially not exposed to any resistances which, however, a slow development of the new creation would indisputably mean for them. God creates a paradise on earth for them, and this presupposes creations of incomparable beauty and most graceful magic. And these creations are the work of a moment. Countless thoughts of God are placed by His will as works in infinity in an instant. Likewise, the new earth will arise without needing time, because nothing is impossible for His might and His will, and because His love and wisdom are involved wherever His will is active. But human intellect does not grasp this. It also bases its own inadequacy on divine activity. But only the imperfect human being applies this standard. But since the new earth will only bear spiritually mature people as inhabitants, their thinking is free from doubts about God's greatness and nothing is incomprehensible to them. They praise and glorify God and His glory, and earthly glory only contributes to deepening their love for God, which ensures them a peaceful life on the new earth where God dwells in the midst of them because He is everywhere where love is. Amen.